Hello and welcome to CodeUn. We'll be going over a few things today and I hope you are excited, eager, and keeping a positive attitude toward learning. This will be a multi-part series focused around objects. So let's go over the agenda. First, what are objects in the JavaScript language and why do we care so much about them? Second, how do we create, read, update objects in JavaScript? And how do we use mechanisms like dot and bracket notation to perform operations? Third, what is an object literal and why are they so good to use? And how do JavaScript objects relate to JSON? Finally, why do we even care about any of this? Is this a waste of my time? Or can I start using this knowledge in my engineering career? Objects are godlike in JavaScript. But what is an object? Objects serve a purpose, representing information or data. Take a step back. I'm going to assume you know what variables are and how to assign a value to them. Think of when you assign values to variables. What are we really doing? We are holding information to a variable to use in some way later. But what if we wanted to represent something more? Like say we wanted to describe an entire object, say like toilet paper. Well, to describe toilet paper, we can use an object in JavaScript to hold a collection of properties in what are called key value pairs. This is fundamental. Rewind, whatever, ask me questions, but you have to start from here. So now that we have kind of an idea of what an object is, how do we create, read, or update objects in JavaScript? I created a file that has a few lines of code. The best way to improve your coding skills is to practice deliberately and to understand not only what the code is doing, but also what the big picture is. You must keep asking yourself why. Why are you coding what you're coding? And what is it doing for the big picture? So say in this scenario / use case that we want to create an object that will hold information related to dogs. This way we can access this object like a bag of data that we can reach into and grab it throughout different parts of our code. In other words, I want to hold a bunch of dog information in a place I can access easily. We are creating a variable called dogs object that say we want to hold information on dogs and assigning it to a new object. The new keyword in JavaScript can be used to create an object from a constructor function. In this example, object. It has to come before the constructor function and it'll set the prototype of this object to the constructor function's prototype property. This is already a lot to take in. You may be asking yourself, what's a constructor? What's a prototype? We may cover more in depth on constructor functions and their prototype property. For now, think of constructors as ways of just building fresh new objects with specific property or elements. So back to the code. In the most simple form, using new and a constructor is an old school way to create an object. Now in development, we always want to check how our code is working or how it looks. Let's test to see what it is doing. So let's console log it out. Given what we've learned, what are you expecting the output to be? Let's give a second and think. What should my console look like? Is this what you expected? As you can see, we see two curly braces indicating that an object was created. Boom, amazing, congrats. That's awesome and super good, but what if we wanted to modify our object? Our object is lonely and doesn't really serve that much of a purpose. The most popular way to add or modify properties in an object is to use what's called dot notation. And it's just like how it sounds. You utilize the name of the object using a dot and a period, and then the property name you want to add with a value. It's popular because it's easy to read. So in this case, we want to add a property dog1 and set it to a string value called Timo. So again, what's the big picture? Remember that we are trying to create an object that holds a bunch of information about dogs. So in this object, dog1 is Timo. But there are limitations to this dot notation approach. Identifiers, things after our object we are trying to access. So in this case, dog1, I mentioned it as a property before. It can also be called identifiers, can only be alphanumeric, exceptions being the underscore and $ symbols. You cannot, for example, have spaces in the property identifier names or numbers before it. However, there's another way, and it's probably the more interesting way. Bracket notation lets you access properties of an object by specifying the name of the object followed by the property name in brackets. It looks similar to how you access elements within an array. The only limitation is that property identifiers have to be a string or a variable that references a string. In our example, we are adding a dog2 and setting it to a string called trump. It works very similar to how dot notation works, but gives us added programmatic flexibility. Let's see some of that power. Say we have a variable called ref variable. Maybe this ref variable holds information about a dog that needs to be referenced programmatically throughout our entire code base. In other words, you have a bunch of references in your code to this variable and it resolves to a string. We want to add this dog to our object, so we use bracket notation to reference the variable, which resolves to dog3, and then it sets its value to Fido. So let's console log out our work. What do you think our dog's objects looks like now? Is this what you expected? If in your head you visually saw that this was your final object after running through these 10 lines of code, you're in a great spot. You're doing absolutely amazing. Thank you for watching this video, and this concludes part 1 in our series.